in this house. In this house.
Skinamarink. It's the latest in a new wave of surreal filmmaking that I like to describe as imaginative horror. I would describe an imaginative horror film as a film whose story derives its tension and terror through that of the human imagination. It plays on the audience's senses and pattern recognition. We as humans are extremely skilled at pattern recognition, especially when it comes to identifying threats, and Skinamarink thrives on this. Horror movies have been around for decades, and while they can take many forms, there's one aspect that stays consistent: the desire to create tension and fear. In this video, I want to explore imaginative horror, especially on how the new film Skinamarink forces the audience to use their imagination. My name is Matt, and this is Understanding Cinema. Imagination is a powerful tool when it comes to creating fear and tension. When we are forced to imagine the horror that is happening, our minds fill in the gaps, creating scenarios that are often more terrifying than anything that could be depicted on screen. For example, my favorite film of all time is Hereditary. In the movie Hereditary, there was always a shot that stood out to me as kind of strange or odd. But as I watched the film over and over and over and over and over again, I eventually recognized what the meaning behind this shot was, what it was there for. Here's the scene where Peter is in bed and is awoken by a noise. Oh, did you catch it? You see? Oh, I don't know if you were looking. I noticed. When he looks past his bed and the shot lingers on the chair. Why? Nothing happens. Peter seems a bit shaken, but then goes back to bed. And then the movie continues and, the rest of the movie happens. After watching the scene multiple times, I recognized and I realized that the whole point is to create this strange tension in the audience, because the shot lingers for so long, but yet the audience is forced to look at what really is just a chair. There's nothing there. By making the audience stare into a blank space, it forces them to use their imagination. The tension and the fear that is built in this scene can be much more impactful than if there was just some jump scare. Gotcha. But for real though, let's take a look at Skinamarink and how it uses these concepts beautifully. The film starts out with a very unique and tasteful cinematography, combining the grainy look of 90s VHS tapes with a modern color vibrancy. The first thing you might notice is the suffocating close camera angles in different perspectives. Now take a look at this shot. It takes place about 30 seconds later. It feels different. There's something eerie about it. Yet we quickly move on, the camera switching to other portions of the home, TV blaring in the background. The film continues very similarly until we get to this shot. We as the audience have kind of been lulled into a false sense of security, and this shot seems to be one of the first to really pull some kind of tension out of us. Kevin stands and stares into the dark hallway, seemingly looking at something. But what? That is what scares us. This movie has some pretty intense scenes. that all tend to rely on the audience worrying what might be just around the corner. There's one scene in particular that I always found the most kind of emblematic of this whole idea, and that is the bedroom scene. Kaylee is called up by a mysterious voice to go upstairs to her parents' bedroom. As she enters, a figure is seen sitting on the edge of the bed, motionless. As she approaches, it is revealed to be what we assume to be her father, who then asks her to look under the bed. Immediately, our guard goes up. We know what hides under beds, right? Monsters, obviously. The camera moving ever so slowly doesn't help the situation at all. And we just cower, waiting for the monster to reach out and pull us under. And yet, it doesn't happen. Kaylee looks back up to her father, having not seen anything.
I can't see anything.
She decides to look again. Why? I don't know. She's crazy. Because why not, you know? Why not just find the monster under the bed? I don't know. Anyways, Wheezy anxious. And rightfully so. I mean, come on. As she looks under the bed once again, nothing. The camera then pans up to reveal her mother sitting on the opposite side of the bed, looking away. As Kaylee looks at her mom, suddenly she says,
I need you to close your eyes.
and instantly we regret that we even started watching this movie. When Kaylee closes her eyes, I think we can all agree that we don't want to see what happens when she opens her eyes. But when she does, nothing happens. Again. And at this point, I'm on the edge of my seat. And not in a good way. Okay? I'm hating every moment of this. But that's what makes it so good. With her mother now gone, we fixate on the subtle ambient noise of the room, which draws our ears to the tiniest of sounds. As she looks into the darkness, we instinctively know something must be there, just out of sight.
There's someone here.
What was that? Our minds instantly fill with images of bones cracking. Something otherworldly. This time, it hurts. Our fears are confirmed. Something is wrong. And we finally get a glimpse of what looks like a hand. Now, a hand alone isn't that scary, but remember, it's not what we see. It's what we don't see. Imagination is so effective in horror movies because it allows the audience to be involved. When the audience is forced to use their imagination, they become active participants in the horror, rather than as passive observers. The audience tends to remember these terrifying moments long after they've left the theater. I mean, I saw this movie like 3 weeks ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. I mean, obviously, I'm making a whole video about it. By relying on our imagination, horror movies can be more subtle, take advantage of shadows, sound, and the surroundings to play tricks on us, all in the pursuit of creating tension and fear. Another great example is this scene, where Kevin is persuaded by the entity to place kitchen silverware into his eye. All of what happens in the scene is entirely heard and not seen. We don't know what exactly Kevin sees or feels other than his screams of pain. We feel disgusted and terrified because all we want is for Kevin to be safe, and yet we are powerless to stop it, forced to watch. These kinds of horror movies, I find, deal with a lot of emotional themes, and especially dark ones, like loss, grief, and trauma. And what just so happens to be one of the most traumatic and horrifying, simplistic experience that almost everyone can relate to, that's right, being alone in the dark. One of the last scenes I wanted to talk about is this one. And the majority of it is just this one shot. We can hear Kevin crying in the background. Now we'll notice that the scene starts to repeat itself. Just as earlier in the film, the cartoon was playing the same scene over and over again, signifying that Kevin's trapped, doomed to repeat the same death, the same horrifying experience over and over and over again, never to escape, with the only comfort being what they watch on TV. The use of imagination is a powerful tool in the horror genre. By forcing the audience to use their own imagination to come up with the scenarios that could be happening off screen, creates fear and tension in a way that is far more effective, at least in my humble opinion. So the next time you watch a horror movie, just remember, what you see on the screen may be scary, but what you don't see is all the more terrifying. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad to be back and making content again. Spent 4 years going to school. I got a degree, so I know what I'm talking about. At least I like to think so. If you genuinely enjoy these kinds of videos, please feel free to leave a like, comment down in the comments, that's what you do, right? You comment, right? I very much enjoy making these videos. They're a lot of fun, but they also allow me to kind of have a more creative outlet and talk about the things that I am passionate about. So if you enjoyed it, maybe got a little spooked, or you learned something, please leave a like and a comment. I'm super curious to what many of your thoughts are on this movie and of other movies. Please, leave me a suggestion for other movies or other topics or other genres you'd like me to talk about. I'm happy to do so. Once again, thank you so much. My name is Matt, and this is Understanding Cinema. And this is Understanding Cinema. And this is Understanding Cinema.